What happens when two big powers sit at the same table but with very different goals? This week, President Trump stepped into a major meeting with Japanese officials. The world is watching closely. With high tariffs, falling markets, and rising pressure, the big question is, can they make a deal before things get worse? Why did Trump join the Japan talks? President Donald Trump surprised many by attending a key trade meeting with top Japanese officials on Wednesday. He wasn't alone. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick were also there. These are two of his top economic advisors and major voices in shaping U.S. trade policy. Trump posted on social media before the meeting saying, "Hopefully, something can be worked out which is good, great, for Japan and the USA." After the meeting, he called it a great honor and claimed there was big progress. So why is Trump getting involved himself? Because the stakes are high. His new tariffs are causing problems in the economy, and he wants fast deals with other countries to calm the markets and voters. What did Japan say after the meeting? Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba spoke to reporters in Tokyo on Thursday. He said his chief trade negotiator, Ryosei Akazawa, gave him an update from Washington. According to Ishiba, the talks were very candid and constructive. Ishiba added that the talks are not easy, but confirmed Trump wants this to be a top priority. He plans to visit Washington soon for more face-to-face talks. Why is this a big deal for Trump? Trump wants to show the world, and especially Americans, that he is a strong deal-maker. With China making its own deals and traveling across Asia to gain support, Trump is under pressure to keep up. He also needs to settle tariff issues quickly. The tariffs he announced earlier this month shook the markets and created fear of a coming recession. That fear forced Trump to place a 90-day pause on some import taxes. But the damage was already done, and people are still worried. What's the situation with Japan? Now, Japan was lucky to avoid the worst of the new U.S. tariffs for now. There's a 10% baseline tariff on most imports, but Japan has also been hit with a 25% tax on cars, steel, aluminum, and auto parts. That's still a heavy price, especially for a country like Japan, which usually charges only a 1.9% average tax on goods from other nations. Japan is a longtime U.S. ally, so the talks are a test of whether Trump can make a fair deal with even friendly countries. Is China taking advantage of the situation? While Trump focuses on Japan, China is busy too. President Xi Jinping is touring Southeast Asia. He's visiting Vietnam, Malaysia, and Cambodia. He wants to show that China is still a strong and stable trade partner. In Malaysia, Xi said China would stand with other Asian countries and fight against unilateralism and protectionism. In other words, he's calling out Trump's tariffs without saying his name. Xi also promised Malaysia and Vietnam better access to Chinese markets. He's trying to show the world that China is open for business, while the U.S. is busy fighting trade wars. Are other countries talking with the U.S.? Yes. In fact, according to U.S. officials, the phones have been ringing off the hook. Around 75 countries have contacted the U.S. to start trade talks. Some, like Israel and Vietnam, even offered to reduce their tariffs to zero. But Trump hasn't made any final decisions yet. He says he wants trade fairness, and he's being very selective about which offers to accept. On Thursday, Trump was also set to meet with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. She may bring messages from the European Union to talk about the tariffs placed on the 27 EU nations. Is there pressure on Trump from inside the U.S.? Yes, lots of it. Many voters brought Trump back into office to improve the economy. But now, some are saying these tariffs are doing the opposite. California Governor Gavin Newsom just filed a lawsuit against Trump. He says Trump went too far by using an economic emergency to set the tariffs. Newsom says the tariffs are causing economic chaos. Even Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell had a warning. He said Trump's tariff plans are larger than expected and will likely lead to higher inflation and slower growth. How is Japan preparing for the impact? Japan is taking the tariffs seriously. The government has created a special task force to study the effects of the new taxes. They are also offering loans to companies that may be hit the hardest. Prime Minister Ishiba has worked hard to get exemptions from the tariffs, but so far, Japan hasn't said what it's willing to give in return. Trump, on the other hand, hasn't been very clear about what he wants either, except that he wants to reduce the $68.5 billion trade gap between the US and Japan. Is it only about trade? There's more to it. Trump also wants Japan to pay more for US troops stationed there. These forces are mostly there to help keep China in check. Japan already plans to raise its defense budget to 2% of its GDP by 2027. But Trump may ask them to go even higher, maybe 3%. Japanese Defense Minister Gen Nakatani said this year's defense budget is already 1.8% of GDP, and there are concerns about how much more they'll be expected to pay. What happens next? The next steps depend on whether both sides can find common ground. Trump wants quick deals. Japan wants fairness without making too many sacrifices. Meanwhile, China is watching closely and moving fast to build its own partnerships. If no agreement is made soon, the 90-day pause will end and full tariffs may return. That could lead to higher prices in the US, slower growth in Japan, more tension with allies, a stronger China on the global stage. Conclusion? Will the dealmaker deliver? This is more than just another trade meeting. This is a battle of strategy, timing, and global influence. Trump wants to prove he can make big deals. Japan wants to protect its economy. And China? They're ready to take the spotlight if the US slips. The clock is ticking and the world is watching.